Hi everyone! Today I'm going to show you how I prepare my kitchen when I first decided to go on keto, and that's over a year ago. And if you're thinking about going on keto vegan yourself but wondering where to start, this is the video for you. So I decided to go on keto last April, and this is July now, so it's over a year ago. So it's kind of a gradual process. I didn't go sort of full on keto and go extremely low carb immediately. I kind of reduced my carb intake, but I was still eating some complex carbs like, chickpeas and some lentils, etc. So in the process, I was doing my research and learning what keto is about, and also how I could adapt to keto, which is perceived a very animal product based diet, to a vegan like me. So the things I adapted, and also the tips I'm going to show you today, they kind of happen gradually through research and a bit of trial and error. But hopefully through showing you what I've done, you can speed up your process and make your life a bit easier. So I'm going to show you the kitchen staples that I always have in the kitchen. And on top of that, I'm going to show you a few gadgets and appliances that have helped me tremendously. So I'm going to assume that you are just as lazy as me. So I'm going to recommend a few tools that you have in your kitchen that's going to make your life a lot easier. So let's start. So first and foremost, oils. So it's important to reduce carbs, but it's equally important to increase the fat intake. And if you've never done keto before, it's a very scary thought because fat normally equals being fat. Fat is critical to your success being on keto. So in my kitchen, I always have at least 4 types of oils. So the first one is olive oil for cooking. So for cooking, I primarily use olive oil or coconut oil. So this is not sort of cold pressed, first pressed, really expensive olive oil, but is sufficiently good quality. It still says it's organic, extra virgin, and I use it for cooking. So for cooking, you don't want to use the super duper first press olive oil. It would be a waste because through heat, a lot of flavors and nutrients would be gone. So you want to use this kind of mid-range but good quality olive oil. And also I have a bottle that is slightly more expensive. I use it raw 100% of the time. I never ever cook it. So it costs a bit more, but it has really, really good flavor. Normally it's the first press extra virgin. And a bottle like this can last you for a long time. So I'll normally use it to drizzle on my salad and that type of thing. So I normally have a bottle of really good cold press olive oil that I can use raw. And on top of that, coconut oil. I use the coconut oil a lot for cooking, saute, frying, etc. So I kind of switch around. Sometimes I use olive oil, sometimes I use coconut oil, depends on what I'm doing. So with coconut oil, your dish will have a slight coconut flavor, which I like, but it's not 100% suitable for every single recipe. So I kind of, switch around. I use olive oil sometimes and coconut oil sometimes. But with coconut oil, really, it's not just for cooking. I use for baking quite a lot. So if you've been watching my videos, coconut oil makes appearance very often. So I definitely have a jar of coconut oil in my cupboard. And on top of that, another really essential oil for me is the toasted sesame oil. I love sesame oil, and with sesame oil, sometimes I use it for cooking, but most of the times I use it raw just for drizzling, a little bit like cold pressed olive oil. If I saute vegetables, for instance, I'll use olive oil or coconut oil, but then I'll drizzle some toasted sesame oil just before I finish cooking, and while the vegetables are still hot, and the fragrance is just so wonderful and heavenly. But of course, on top of that, there are huge varieties of oils you can get from hemp seed, flaxseed. You can make your own infused oil. Look up my video on how to make garlic infused oil. With oil, it's really worth investing good quality oil because it takes up 70 to 80% of your diet. So it's really worth investing. And the next thing is salt. I say the salt is equally important to keto diet as fat. It gives you a good supply of electrolyte, which you will need, particularly in the initial phase of your keto diet. particularly in the initial phase when you lose a lot of water weight. Because when you deplete carbohydrate, the first thing happens to your body, it would flush out a lot of water. Carbohydrate latches on a lot of fluid. So when you flush out the fluid, it also flushes out electrolyte. So you need to boost your salt intake so you don't become fatigued and feel unwell. And it's important to supply your body with good salts. So there are two salts that I always have in my kitchen. The first one is Maldon salt. It's a British salt, I believe. It's from Maldon. It's a place in the UK. I've never been, but I love their salt. And they come in flakes like this. You can get some finely ground ones, but I always get the flakes. The reason I like it is that it's kind of naturally sweet. So it gives your food kind of quite mellow saltiness, which I really like. Even before keto, I always use Maldon salt. I just love it. Another essential salt for me is Himalayan salt. I'm sure you have seen these pink crystals. So Himalayan salt is mountain salt. It's from the Himalayan mountain. So daily basis, I use a combination of Maldon salt and Himalayan salt. So one is mountain salt, one is sea salt. I like the combination of using mountain salts and sea salts to get different types of minerals and different types of goodness. Himalayan salt is quite sweet to taste as well. I know it's strange to describe salt being sweet, but there's a natural kind of umami. In the past videos, I've shown you the salt trick I often use if I feel a bit peckish, but knowing that I'm not really hungry, or you feel fasting, you can just take a small pinch of salt and put it on the tip of your tongue, and your hunger tends to go away. So the Himalayan salt is really good for the salt trick because it doesn't taste harsh at all. Particularly since I went on keto, I became a big fan of salts. So on top of the staple Himalayan salt and Maldon salt, I also start to collect other type of salts. And you'd be surprised how many varieties are out there. One of my recent favorite is black salt. I think this is from Himalaya as well. I don't know whether it's to do with it's near a volcano or something. It tastes sulfurous. It's quite unusual flavor, but I love it. So a lot of time I just grind a little bit on top of my stir fry or on top of my salad. Another way you could do it, you can make scramble tofu with it. So it will make the tofu taste a little bit eggy, or at least that's how people describe it. So if you come across black salt, give it a try. Personally, I love it. So I tend to buy coarse salt and then put it in the grinder and grind it on the spot because I just think it's fresher and nicer. But doesn't matter what you do, there's one thing I'm going to beg you to please do, which is to ditch table salt. I think most restaurants probably give you a grinder, like proper salt, but very often you come across this finely ground white salt. And if you go to supermarket, you can see them being labeled as table salt. I'll say please don't buy them because they're highly processed and very often full of chemicals, additives, and all sorts of things to it. So it's not a good salt to take into your body. Doesn't matter you're on keto or not. I know these salts cost a bit more, but to be honest, a bag of Himalayan salt will last you forever. And, it's such an important part of your well-being. Make sure you buy real salts. So very often, particularly if I know I'm going to a restaurant, I would carry my own salt. So I have a mini salt grinder that I have in my bag most of the time and a small bottle of olive oil. So if table salt is only salt that's available to me, like if I go to Whole Foods, they give you little sachets of these white salts. I don't use them. I use my own salt. And same with oil. If there isn't enough oil in my food, I'll drizzle my own olive oil. Another essential for me is vinegar. So there are two types of vinegar I always have in my kitchen. One is apple cider vinegar. So this is one of my favorite vinegar. It tastes really, really nice. It's got that fruity and sweet flavor. And also it's extremely good for you. I mean, vinegar in general is fantastic for you anyway, but I really like the flavor. So definitely apple cider vinegar. And on top of that, I always have a bottle of rice vinegar. So I use vinegar most often for salad dressing and for dipping sauce. The last three ingredients we've talked about, oil, salt, vinegar, you can make really nice salad dressing out of it anytime. So vinegar is absolutely essential. So one of the key things with keto is reducing carbohydrate and also removing added sugar pretty much altogether. So we need some really good sweetener. So when it comes to keto-friendly sweeteners, there are lots of debates. So one of the biggest misconceptions when it comes to keto sweetener is the fact that people tend to think that if there's 0 calories, no net carbs, then it's safe to eat. It's not always the case. And I'll point you to a couple of videos I've seen before, the people doing experiments. They have varieties of sugar replacements, and then they take in the sweeteners and then test their ketone level and insulin level. And you'll be surprised a lot of sweeteners, they're supposed to be really low in calories and carbs, actually spike your insulin tremendously. I'll try to dig out the videos and put the links down below. They're extremely useful because it highlights the fact that as much the keto is about reducing carbohydrate, removing sugar, up the fat, ultimately it's pointing to one thing. It's about reducing the secretion of insulin because that's when our body is going to a fat storage mode. It's all about minimizing the insulin spikes, and that triggers your blood sugar to surge and then crash. And that's the vicious cycle that we're trying to avoid. And not just sweeteners, it's about any low carb food or any food that you perceive as keto friendly. Ultimately, it's about how your body responds, even though there's a guideline you can follow. But when it comes to sweetener, it's a bit more delicate. So in terms of what is the best and safest sugar replacement, I say always keep your eye on the latest information because it's changing all the time. People always come up with new findings. So from what I've researched and what I know so far, stevia seems to be the best one to have, the safest one. But then again, you know, do it with caution. You don't want to have a huge amount of it, and be sensible. Sugar replacement is kind of one of the ingredients that probably most of us haven't grown up with. Even though it says natural, whether it's totally natural or not, it's kind of up for debate. So be sensible with it. Use it when you need to, and don't go crazy. With sweetener, I kind of see it as a kind of way to spice up your life. It's not something that you want to go overboard and consume a lot. But from what I know, as of today, stevia seems to be a good option. And stevia comes in liquid form and also in powder form. And I found this brand, I don't know whether it's British or not, whether you can find it. So it looks a little bit like sugar. It's really fine, so granule form. I like the taste. So it doesn't have some weird aftertaste that I find with the liquid ones like I've tried. So if you watch my cooking videos, whenever sweetener is required, this is what I tend to use. So we've covered the sweet and sour and saltiness that you will need for your cooking. And now let's move on to the food ingredients. So when it comes to fresh ingredients, in principle, you don't want to buy a huge quantity. You want to buy them fresh on the spot and consume them within, a couple of days. But there are a couple of things that I do keep in my fridge a bit longer, and because they keep really well, and also I can knock up, something really simple very quickly with them, which is avocado and tomatoes. So tomatoes actually keep quite well. Some people keep in room temperature, but I tend to keep them in the fridge. And there's huge variety of different tomatoes. I love cherry tomatoes. I use them in my salad like every day. And also avocado as well is really good source of fat. If you're going on keto, avocados will be your best friends. You can turn them into salad or ice creams. Look up my ice cream recipe. You can turn avocado into really delicious and creamy ice cream. So if you open my fridge, you can always find some sort of tomatoes and a bunch of avocados in my fridge. On top of that, maybe I'll have some mushrooms, but they don't keep as well as these two. So I try to buy vegetables in small quantity and then eat them as soon as I can. But if you have tomatoes and avocado in your fridge, you never run out of your salad ingredients. Hello, baby. Oh, Dolly has come to say hello. That's Dolly. So that's the fresh ingredients. Kind of short list, but for good reasons. But there are a few things that keep really well in your kitchen, so I'm going to quickly run through them with you. The first one is nuts and seeds. You can't really have too many nuts and seeds. And obviously be sensible. I have made mistake of buying tons of them and having to throw them away because they run out of sell by date. But because sometimes I go crazy, you know. They keep reasonably well. Most of them you can keep them, you know, for a few good months in a cool condition. So they're extremely handy. I snack on them all the time. You know, you can add them to your recipes. A lot of my recipes use nuts and seeds. They're a great source of fats and full of nutrients. So with nuts, I tend to buy them unroasted, unsalted, in the sort of purest form possible. So the salty nuts you can buy from the shop, a lot of the times they're too salty for me and I don't know what kind of salts they add. So if I want to have roasted nuts, I will make them myself. And I have a spicy nuts recipe that you can look up as well. They're really delicious. They're great snacks. And seeds as well, full of nutrients and everything. So explore. There's so many different varieties. Another good thing to keep in your kitchen is nut milk. So my favorite is almond milk. I always have a bottle in my kitchen. So I use the nut milk, obviously, for recipes quite a lot. But a lot of times I just turn it into a hot drink. So what I do is just warm it up in a frying pan, not boiling it, but just warm it up. Add a bit of stevia. But this is my favorite thing to do at the moment. This is called Golden Glow. It's actually given to me when I went to a yoga retreat recently. We were given a goodie bag and this was in there. And basically it's a turmeric, which is fantastic for you, and mixed with a few other goodies. And it's got a bit of maca powder in there as well. And I just put a teaspoon in my warmed up milk and stir it and just drink it. It's so comforting. It really heals your entire body. You know, you can just put a bit of maca powder, a bit of turmeric powder, a bit of stevia, and that's a wonderful healing drink for you. So this one you buy from the fridge section in a supermarket, so you have to keep it chilled all the time. But I always keep a carton of the long life one. This is not my first choice when it comes to milk, but it's good to keep a carton in there just in case you want to make something that requires almond milk. It can keep for quite a long time, but obviously check the sell by date. That's my mistake all the time. I have like a cupboard of items that's run out of sell by date, but they're still there. So don't repeat my mistake. And also I always have some nut butter. So my favorite is almond butter. I love almonds. And also I have peanut butter as well. I always buy the crunchy variety because I just love the crunchy bits in them. But you can get the smooth ones as well. You know, with this I always add it to chia seed pudding or use it on as some sort of a spread. We talked about seeds already, but chia seed would be a really good one to have as well. And it keeps reasonably well. And also you can make chia seed pudding. Look up my channel for chia seed pudding. Another of my personal favorite is the Silken tofu. So this doesn't require refrigeration, so you can keep in the cupboard quite well for quite a long time. And I use it to make miso soup a lot of time, or some sort of soup. And obviously to make miso soup you need miso, so I keep a jar in my fridge all the time as well, and keeps quite well. So if you like miso soup, really with these two ingredients you can make nice soup and sprinkle a little bit of spring onion. You know, it's a healing soup. And also if you fancy, you can stock some nutritional yeast. It's quite low carb, and also most of the times you only use a very small amount, and it gives you that kind of, you know, slightly cheesy flavor. Some people like. I like it, so I always have a jar. Another thing I recommend that you stock in your kitchen is herbal teas. You know, there will be times on your keto journey that you might feel, you know, unsure, agitated, and needs a bit of calming effect. And herbal teas are fantastic for that. But when it comes to herbal teas, you want to watch out for some added chemicals or colorings. A lot of herbal teas actually have a lot of chemicals added to them, so you want to be very careful. There's a brand I really recommend. I don't know whether you can get it from where you are, and this is not affiliated. I'm just a great fan of their teas forever and ever, and that's Tea Picks. It's a British brand, I'm pretty sure, but I think they might be sold worldwide. I don't know, I hope so. My favorite is the peppermint leaves, peppermint tea. It's the purest peppermint tea that I have tasted. Very often, if you go to a cafe, you ask for peppermint tea, it comes with something that's got weird aftertaste. And I'm really sensitive for that kind of stuff. So and sometimes I just don't drink it because it makes me ill. So mint tea from Teapigs is the only one that I feel really safe to drink, and it tastes amazing. This is like the best mint tea ever. So very often I just make a nice cup before bedtime, and it's really, really soothing. So it comes in well, it's a tea bag, but I just thought I'd show you. And it's just really cute. And the fragrance is just so pure and natural. So if you can find Teapigs tea, not just mint tea, but any kind of tea from them, I think it's a small family company, and I really support them because they just source the best ingredients. So I recommend you have some, your favorite herbal teas in your cupboard. So if you're looking for that kind of soothing and healing effect, and it's instant, it takes seconds to make. So definitely teas. So these are my kitchen staples that I have and kind of evolve throughout my keto journey, and they work really well for me. So you can take the ones that kind of work for you, so it can give you some idea in terms of what to get and to get your kitchen ready to make your life easier. So some of you might be wondering what to do with your old foods, the foods you no longer eat. It's really up to you. Some people might choose to throw them away or give them to other people. But what I did initially, as I said in the beginning of the video, that I went in with probably 80% of commitment, I'll be honest with you. I kind of went in thinking, well, if it doesn't work out, if I need to back out for some reason, I can still go and eat the pasta. And little did I know that once I went into this kind of fat adapted state, and up to now, I really haven't craved for pasta, I haven't craved for bread or anything like that. I haven't craved for sugar. So that was a surprise to me. And it works differently with everyone. If you think you're one of those people more likely to be tempted, I would say find a way to remove them out of your environment. So personally, they haven't been a distraction for me. It could be kind of a temptation for you, then, remove them or give them to, other people. But I think, you probably want to do that selectively. I mean, again, it's a very personal choice. If you have family members who are not on keto, then maybe they can help you to consume those foods. But if there's just, junk food that you just know they're not good for anybody, whether they're on keto or not, then, in a way, I'm kind of thinking along the line of, if I was to quit smoking when I give my cigarettes to my friends, I probably won't, because I know they're not good for them. So it's a kind of choice you have to make yourself. I mean, personally, I just threw them away gradually. And the last bit I want to go through with you is the kitchen equipment. So what tools would enhance your life and make your life easier being a keto vegan? There are a few things I find really useful. Like recently, I learned how to use a tortilla press. So thank you guys. I discovered tortilla press through you guys. It has helped a lot, particularly if you're looking to cook for yourself, and you should. Preparing your food is the best way to stay on keto. So tortilla press is a nice one to get if you want to make my flatbread. Another one, I'll say maybe spiralizer. If you're looking to make like zucchini noodles and that kind of stuff. So these are kind of, nice thing to have. But there's only one thing I think you should have. If you can, I'll say definitely get a food processor. So majority of the recipes on my channel, you can probably get away with not using food processor. It just requires a bit more work. It doesn't have to be the super duper high speed, high power food processor. You can get a really basic one. Most of them work really well, just for chopping and blending. The best way to stay on keto is to cook a lot. So you want to equip your environment that you have no excuse not to do something. It enhances the experience. If it's quick and easy, you're more likely to do it again. I'm a firm believer of using the right tools to do the right jobs. So there you go. So these are the things that I could think of that has been really useful. So it's an evolution. You don't have to rush out and do all these things at one go. But if you have some rough idea, it's about knowing what you will need and what they're for. So you have a plan in your head, take your pace and get your kitchen ready. And once you get into the rhythm, really, it's a no-brainer and it's effortless. So hopefully it's been useful for you. So follow me on Instagram if you haven't already. I post the food I eat on a regular basis if you need some inspiration, and also recipes from this channel as well. So check out my Instagram. And thank you for hanging out with me today, and thanks for watching. I'll see you next time.